everyone. My name is Jesse. I'm a project associate with Valley Vision, and welcome to today's regional industry advisory, touching on gerontology, geriatrics, and business services in the field of aging. And just as a few housekeeping points, feel free to enable your video. It's optional. We would love to see everyone's faces. Also, please stay on mute unless you're called upon for a question. And if you have any questions regarding, questions for the panelists or technical difficulties, feel free to bring them up via the chat box. And also, this meeting will be recorded and will be provided as part of post-meeting materials. So, and with that, I'll pass it on to Caitlin, who will introduce us to an icebreaker.
Hi, folks. So we're going to go ahead and roll on with our icebreaker. Our question for today is, what are your aspirations for a quality lifestyle for loved ones and yourself as a mature adult? So we have a little bit of instructions on the page here, but you're going to go ahead in just a moment. I will share my screen and I will ask everyone to go to www.menti.com. I'll also go ahead and paste that in the chat box. So you will go ahead and go to www.menti.com and go ahead and paste the code that I will show in just a moment on my screen here. Sort of a great way for everyone to answer some of these questions. It will generate a great word cloud with all of our answers. So I'm going to go ahead and put a link to that in the chat box here. And I'm going to share my screen, which will have that Menti code. All righty. Everyone able to view my screen okay? Awesome. So I recommend folks, again, go to menti.com. You can do this on your computer or your cell phone. I think sometimes it's nice to do it on a cell phone because I like to kind of put in my answers on my phone as I'm looking at the everyone's responses on my computer. But either way, whatever works best for you. And we'll actually be able to see folks' responses in live time, which is pretty cool. So I'll give everyone just a minute or two. I think this is kind of nice as folks are popping on Zoom too. I'll give everyone a moment to go to menti.com. And again, you're going to go ahead and use that code at the top of my screen here. Perfect. Looks like everyone's getting the gist of it. Yeah, I see independence, community and friends, compassion, respect. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, it's great seeing these come in. Exercise. I see independence is a really big factor here, definitely. Yeah, health, especially in our COVID times, absolutely. Let's see. Network of support, laughter, travel. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I love seeing all of these come in. This is great. See, respect, absolutely, the outdoors. Engaging in the community. Laughter, fitness. My apologies here. I've somehow drawn this fun green line on the screen here. We're always learning new technology every day, so sorry about that. But yeah, network of support, fitness, autonomy. Yeah, it's interesting too. You can see, lots of folks have different aspirations, but some similar themes of independence, of respect, of health, travel. Yeah, belonging, compassion, great food. Especially in our farm to fork region up here. Yeah. Seeing more and more answers coming in here. I'll give it just about 30 more seconds, a minute or so, and I'll turn it over shortly. But yeah, love seeing these come in. Hobbies, another great food. Yeah, being person-centered. Social interactions, supportive family, advocacy, absolutely. Yeah. It's great. It's like we all have some of these shared values, especially as we get older here. Alrighty, I'll give it just a couple more seconds. And I think I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen here. Thank you all. And what I want to do now is go ahead and introduce, sorry about that. Let me just pull up my PowerPoint.
You're on mute, Caitlin. I think you.
Sorry, Caitlin, that was my bad.
No worries there. I want to introduce Julie Holt, the Regional Director of Employer Engagement and Health Services at Los Rios, and Angela Cordell, who's a Regional Director of Employer Engagement at North Far North. I'll turn it over to folks, or turn it back to Jesse and turn it to Julie and Angela to introduce yourselves.
Thank you, Caitlin. I love the word wall. I'm hoping that gave us some inspiration to launch in today's beautiful advisory. We're so excited to have our industry partners here, our faculty, community members, workforce development folks, as well as leadership from the colleges. I am Julie Holt, and I'm the Regional Director of Employer Engagement for Health. This is a grant to the community college system where we link high schools into community college programs, and with the ultimate goal of really looking at a workforce that's ready to enter into any type of job or career. So that is our primary focus, and that is why we're here today. In the North region, the field of aging has many sub-industries that support our community as a collective. The services and organizations in our community have the mission of supporting the needs of individuals and families to optimize healthy aging. This encompasses specialized aging-related knowledge and a very biopsychosocial perspective as sort of our grounding force today, that biopsychosocial perspective. With that, we are wanting to engage with our industry partners and define their needs and their gaps and understanding how we can best meet those through our community college programs and our high school pathway programs. We are so pleased and grateful to have these amazing leaders with us. And with that, I will hand it off to my colleague, Angela Cordell.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Julie, for inviting me and my sector, as it's called, to participate in this conversation. I'm Angela Cordell, the Regional Director of Employer Engagement for Business and Entrepreneurship, which ultimately means that I get to work with all of the other regional directors in their sectors, because as we know, business is integrated into every field. And the more that Julie and I talked about this topic, the more I realized I had so much to learn, which means that my business faculty and colleagues and friends here today, I'm sure that you'll take so much away from this, specifically in the area of non-clinical support services and settings. So how are we working with our aging communities as we're marketing? In the accounting space, in the sales space, in the customer service space? How are we educating ourselves and showing up for them in the most positive and ethical and effective ways? So I'm here to learn as much as anyone else. And while business doesn't necessarily have a degree or certification in the North Far North region that directly the business department doesn't have one that aligns directly with this topic, there's going to be so many nuggets that we can infuse into our current programs and our current conversations with students. So thanks for joining me. If you have any questions for me throughout today, please feel free to put them in the chat.
Thank you, Angela and Julie. Appreciate the welcome. I'm Renee John with Valley Vision. I'm a project leader over our workforce impact area. And at Valley Vision, we have the distinct pleasure of working alongside Los Rios Community College District and the community colleges overall in facilitating and planning and executing these advisories to ensure that demand-driven skill and certificate information is making its way to the community college faculty and staff for their planning efforts, and to ensure curriculum is meeting the current needs and the emerging needs of workforce. It's our pleasure to be here with you today. I'm joined by Jesse Flores, who was doing our housekeeping earlier, as well as Caitlin Blockus, who helped us with our icebreaker activity. And we'll just go to the supporter slide next so that you can see where this funding comes from. Again, this is supported by Strong Workforce Funds through the Los Rios Community College District, supporting the greater community college region. And there are additional supporters and partners listed on this slide. These advisories are in partnership with the Centers of Excellence at Los Rios, the North Far North Consortia, We also collaborate with Sierra College, Yuba Community College District, and the 4 workforce boards that make up the capital region, the 9-county capital region. We're going to have on our agenda today, go over this briefly with you. We are completing our welcome and introduction, and then we are going to hear next on shifting demographics and occupational information from Ebony Benzing, Research Manager with the Centers of Excellence at Los Rios. We will have a keynote presentation by Jeannee Parker Martin from Leading Age California. We will give you the quickest of bio breaks, 5 minutes. And then we will have a robust panel discussion with several employer and industry leaders. We will have an ageism, first aid, and regional support services for mature adults discussion with Lorinda Reynolds. And then there will be an overview of pathways that is provided by both Julie Holt and Angela Cordell. And then we will conclude. There will be opportunities for question and answer after each of these sections. So if questions come up for you while someone is presenting or while the panel discussion is going on, please go ahead and put those in the chat, and we'll be monitoring that and bringing those forward after the presentation, and we'll entertain as many questions as we can. So at this point, I am going to hand it over to Ebony Benzing to share some labor market and occupational information with us.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Give me just 1 second so I can share my screen. It's in the right mode too. All right. I take it everybody can see this. Can I get a yes if everyone can see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Great, thank you. All right, so good afternoon. My name is Ebony Joy Benzing. I am the research manager for the North Far North Center of Excellence for Labor Market Research. I'm here today to share some findings about jobs in the fields of gerontology, geriatrics, and business services, with a particular focus on the field of aging. I'm hoping that the data in this presentation will lead to fruitful conversations that will in turn inform our local gerontological program offerings in the community college space. Today, my presentation is going to differ a little bit from how I typically do these presentations with regional advisory meetings. From a labor market perspective, gerontology is an interesting topic to study because it integrates knowledge and skills from various fields of study and applies those understanding to providing holistic services to older adults. With that said, there's no one occupational definition or industry that encompasses all or a significant part of gerontology. And truth be told, labor market data is really built around describing and understanding our workforce using standardized occupations and industries. I'm going to go more into this later in the section of my presentation called LMI Research, Methodology, and Limitations. So for today, what I really want to do is share the findings of my research on gerontology, geriatrics, and business services in the field of aging, while orienting you to some of the basics around labor market research and calling out some of the limitations that I encountered specifically with this project. I'm going to share some definitions of gerontology with you. We'll talk about those LMI research methodologies and limitations. I have research findings, both from a report that was released in February and updated recently, and also some new data that I started pooling recently. We'll go into a gerontology program inventory. We'll look at LMI for existing Greater Sacramento gerontology programs, and then I will close with a conclusion and some recommendations. So first off, we have a couple of definitions for gerontology. The first one on the left comes from a professor at one of our colleges, American River College, Lorinda Reynolds. I'm going to invite you to read this, take a minute to read it silently as I read it aloud. Gerontology is the integration of multidisciplinary knowledge that informs the gerontological biopsychosocial perspective and specialized aging-related knowledge that sets this profession apart from general practice disciplines that work in the field of aging, such as non-clinical social work. I also took the opportunity to pull a complementary definition of gerontology from the Gerontological Society of America, which is a national organization whose mission is to cultivate excellence in interdisciplinary aging research and education to advance innovations in policy and practice. So their definition calls out developing an understanding of the changes in multiple processes related to aging, so physical, mental, and social, and using this knowledge to develop equitable practices, programs, and policies to support aging communities. With these definitions in the back of our minds, let's briefly talk about LMI research. So traditional labor market research is designed to provide data for analysis of workforce trends and outcomes. This data can include demographics, wages, the size of the labor force, as well as how many jobs exist for a particular occupation within a given geography. It also gives us estimates for job openings in the futures. It gives us data around unemployment and so many other things. In LMI research, there are two basic units of analysis: occupations and industries. Occupations are collections of jobs that perform similar tasks. Every person in a job within a particular occupations, like registered nurses, perform similar tasks and have similar frames of knowledge, skills, and abilities. The other unit of analysis is or are industries. Industries are essentially collections of businesses that engage in similar types of economic activity as their primary business type of things. So for instance, if I were to say, hey, think about the restaurant industry, I'm sure we can all come up with a long list of restaurants in our areas whose primary business activity is to prepare and serve food in person to customers. So LMI is really at its best when we are able to clearly define either the occupations or industries associated with what we know. This is also a component that is really needed for community college program development. The legislature has called on California community colleges to link their career education program to particular occupations and jobs, so we know that when students leave those programs, they have jobs to go into. So a great example of this is when a faculty member at one of the community colleges that I serve asked me, hey, Ebony, what can you tell me about, here's a current example, electronic game development in the greater Sacramento region. I go to work attempting to define what electronic game development means in terms of occupation. So what are those jobs that are really related to that? And then also, what are the industries that have that as a primary business activity? The challenge comes in when I'm researching fields that aren't well described with this existing framework of occupations and industries. And I have a number of tools at my disposal to try to find out more. However, sometimes that analysis pulls us from that quantitative side, like how many jobs and how many jobs can I expect in the future, into qualitative things around needs, and I'm trying to attempt to quantify those things. Because of that, we tend to become more reliant on relationships we have with stakeholders like you guys in our communities to better understand workforce needs and to develop programs while meeting both that quantitative need, but then also the qualitative things that are coming out of these meetings. So that's why we're here today, to develop a common understanding of what gerontology looks like in the Sacramento area. So for the next part of this presentation, we're going to look at findings from a report, Gerontology, Geriatrics, and Business Services in the Field of Aging, which was initially released in February, but recently updated this month. Both the original and updated reports can be found on the COE website, and I have links in this presentation to them. We'll also take a look at some preliminary findings from job postings research that I just started doing using a new tool that I was recently trained on. And I'm hoping that together we can kind of come up with that definition that we're looking for. So first things, this program exploration report on gerontology. So in the fall of last year, Dr. Jessica Coppola at Sacramento City College asked the COE to research workforce needs in gerontology with the goal of informing Sac City's program development process for an existing program. They're trying to figure out how they can improve, modify, change their program to better meet the needs of employers and workers in their area. So this report represents an attempt to define what's needed for gerontology in our area while meeting the college's immediate needs of saying, hey, these are some things that you can kind of look into. So my intent with this research and its subsequent analysis was to ask a very broad question. What does gerontology look like in Sacramento? What does the gerontological workforce look like in Sacramento? In the hopes that I can identify like key occupations or key industries that I can bring in quantitative data for analysis. Since I approach this issue broadly and traditional LMI analysis would not meet the needs for this research because I didn't have an occupation or an industry to focus on, I used another tool in my toolbox, job postings analysis. The job postings analysis that I did was conducted over a 5-year period. So I looked at job postings from January 1 of 2016 to December 31st of 2020. And I used keyword searches to attempt to pull out job postings that might be related to gerontology, geriatrics, and business services. Those 5 keywords that made it into this report are the ones that you see here: elder care, geriatrics, gerontologists, gerontology, and senior care. Now, please know that I did use other words beyond that, but beyond this list of 5 phrases. I had to cull down my list because basically how a keyword search and job postings, imagine going onto Google and just typing in jobs in gerontology in Sacramento. You get something like 1.1 million results in 1/1000th of a second returned to you. The thing is that not all of those results are relevant. This report is attempting to focus on the most relevant results using the most relevant keywords that generated those results, i.e. these are the 5 words or phrases that I typed in that gave you the most job postings that were more directly related to gerontology, geriatrics, and some other things versus other words that I used. Now, because this report relies on non-traditional data analysis methods, there are limitations to how this data should be used. Job postings are considered real-time labor market information. It's meant to give us a snapshot of what's happening in our local labor market at any point in time and is based on what employers are currently looking for and who they are currently looking for. The challenge with this is that there is no predictions for future needs. We can't make an assumption that employers are going to continue to do what they have been doing because that's what's been showing up in job postings, because things often change and our employers are more apt to respond quickly to changing economic conditions. Limitations to this research has to do with the keyword search thing. So you remember that Google analogy I used earlier, typing in gerontology jobs in Sacramento into Google and you get all these results, some are relevant and some aren't. It's the same thing here. Using keywords introduces a lot of noise into our data because of how those keywords work. In the programs that I'm using, they're looking for keywords or words that are similar to my keywords embedded in job postings. Sometimes it's a hit and sometimes it's a really, really big miss. What that really means is that context is oftentimes ignored. So that means that I have to go in and visually kind of read through and scrub the data and remove things that are really not relevant. So if I'm typing in the word aging, it'll pull up any posting that mentions a word age in there, including things around like childcare, which you'll kind of see pop up in my data a little bit, which is interesting. So because of these limitations in the data analysis, this report can really be broadly interpreted. And I'm going to suggest that this is kind of like a jumping off point for additional research into things that are pulled out from these reports and this preliminary data I'm sharing today. So The report starts off with a description of our older adult population in Sacramento. In this case, I looked at population demographic data for adults aged 60 years and beyond. And yes, I know that sometimes when we talk about older adults or the aging community, we start our age groups at 55 and go beyond that. But the data set that I used chunked all of my age groups into basically decades. So like from 10 to 19 and stuff like that. So I had to start with that 60 plus group. So for adults aged 60 years and beyond in our region, there are more than 591,000 residents, or in 2019, that's about 22% of the population. By 2024, this age group is projected to increase 14%, which is significantly faster than our average population growth rate of 5%. And they're going up to 671,000 residents. Okay. These numbers alone right here hint to the need that we need people, services, and systems to support our older residents in our community, because this population is growing. They represent a significant share of our population, and it does not make sense to not have programs or like services that are tailored to meet the needs of our aging residents. Now, what I want to do is call out some findings related to jobs in the report. So using keyword searches, I found that nearly half of the job postings for jobs related to gerontology, geriatrics, and business were located within the healthcare and social assistance sector. Angela and Julie hinted at this earlier, that they work in particular sectors, and these are like the industry sectors that we think of. So like healthcare and social assistance includes everything you can think of that would go with healthcare. So like all your dental stuff, your eye stuff, your hospitals, your private doctor's offices. But it also includes that social assistance sector. That's all of our, what we tend to think of when it comes to social work, social care, social programs, and stuff like that. Now, 37% of these jobs were found in 3 industries in particular: nursing and residential care facilities in our area, hospitals and ambulatory health care, and then social assistance. So once again, that's this kind of like social programs, community-based organization kind of bucket right there. Okay. In terms of employers, our employers for that were related to these jobs, or people who were hiring for jobs related to the keywords that I input into my database. They included insurance providers, they included healthcare, they included senior living facilities, they included local government. So that's both the County of Sacramento and the City of Sacramento, but then also all of the other counties kind of in our region. So El Dorado, Paso, Nevada, and so on. I included education systems, and this one is a little bit interesting, you might be thinking, but think about who some of our larger employers are in this area. UC Davis has its name on a lot of things, and their primary business is in education. They also have their healthcare facility, which is represented up here as well. Now, in terms of the types of occupations that employers were looking for as it relates to the keyword searches that I did, 21% of the jobs were in occupations related to healthcare practitioners and support. That includes our registered nurses, our LVNs, our doctors. It also includes our certified nursing assistants, medical assistants, those technical type of support roles that can be found in healthcare. Another 16% of jobs were in management type occupations. This included medical and health service managers, and they can work in a variety of settings. But it also included management positions like sales and marketing managers. Another 11% of jobs were classified as personal care, and there were 2 big occupations associated with that: home health aides and personal care aides. And then I have a further list here about other occupations. If you would like more detailed information for these occupations, I call them out specifically in that report. I'm going to highly encourage you to kind of take a look at it, because it's a lot to put into like one slide or a presentation. So now I did start some preliminary research using a new job postings kind of analysis tool I was recently trained on, and this is from EMSI. My previous work was done with using Burning Glass, which is a web-based tool that aggregates online job postings. EMSI is doing a very similar thing. Now, my goal with this was to provide additional clarity in what I had already found in the report. Why EMSI job postings? Based off of the training that I had, I learned that they have a really tight kind of context filter that can be applied to keyword searches, meaning that it takes some of the labor that I would have to do around scrubbing data out of things, and it can pull in some job postings that would really help us focus on the occupations that need to be trained towards for gerontology. The keywords that I used in this search are the ones that you see right here on the right side of the screen, and they were provided by a local gerontology professor. Some of these keywords were excluded from my findings because of the amount of noise that came back in the job postings data. So for instance, I typed in aging, it would pull job posts that had any mention of the word age in there, and it wasn't really related to gerontology at all. Another interesting word that was excluded was seniors. When we think about gerontology, we think about our senior, I know senior citizen is super dated phrase, I know, or senior care and stuff like that. But it was also pulling in jobs that were looking for senior experts in their field or something like that. So I had to kind of scrub those out of my research. Now, next slide shows preliminary analysis of those findings. I have a couple different columns here, so bear with me as I explain them all. So the first column you see on the left are the keywords that I used. I searched each of those keywords or phrases independent of each other. And I found one, the number of unique job postings related to that keyword in the last year in the greater Sacramento region. And then two, the posting intensity. Posting intensity is an interesting concept, but it's really tightly related to the unique job postings. So what EMSI does is they go through and they pull all of these job postings in Universin and they analyze them. Some of them are duplicates of each other. So that unique job postings is really the deduplicated number of job postings related to the keyword. Posting intensity compares the deduplicated number to the actual number of job postings for that. So where all the duplicates live. So in the greater Sacramento region, the regional average for posting intensity was 4:1. If we have averages higher than that, like this 5:1 and the 6:1, it gives us an idea that, hey, there's a little bit of like hotness or hiring or something happening here, and it's worth paying attention to. If it's lower than that, there's not as much activity. Okay, so I input each of these words independent and pulled these different things. I also have other data, but I just kind of wanted to share this with you for the time being. And I aggregated all of my findings to figure out, hey, what were the most commonly posted occupations related to all of these keywords when I look at everything together? Now, that's what's in this very last column. I took and I broke the occupations into 4 primary categories, and they are caregiving. So there's your home health aides and personal care aides, and childcare workers is in there too. I'll explain that in just a second. We have health/geriatrics. We have management, and we have social workers. Social workers isn't something that really popped up for me in my last research, which is what's in the report. So I think the context filter in EMSI helped to strengthen the search a little bit more to pull out things that I know that people were interested in. Going back to the top, I said I wanted to talk about childcare workers a little bit. I know when we think about gerontology, we are not thinking about care for children. Sometimes childcare workers pops up in these instances because of how the research databases uses their algorithm to classify certain types of work. You might see a job posting for in-home care for an older adult. and that will sometimes get classified as childcare workers. So please know that I know that that is not a target occupation for us, but when I'm considering how the algorithm actually works, it's sometimes useful to look at that demand just a little bit to kind of suss things out. So now, conclusions from my job posting analysis. There were some commonalities, and I'm going to talk about some standouts that I found in the job postings. So between my research in burning class, my research in EMSI, the results largely mirror each other. And that's because there was really like a huge geriatric focus. It's in healthcare, residential services, and in-home care service, especially that area of caregiving and home maintenance. And when I say home maintenance, I'm thinking of like maids and housekeepers and people who will come in and help maintain a house for someone to live in place. Now, EMSI was able to pull out, well, actually both of them were able to pull out some non-clinical or non-healthcare related occupations. And those were largely in the areas of health management services, marketing and sales, and social assistant / social worker / social kind of community-based work. Okay. Now, on the right-hand side of this screen, I have some non-clinical standouts. These were job titles that caught my eye when I was looking through the job postings. And I think they were really representative of what this group is trying to focus on. We had an aging life care manager at Elder Options Incorporated. We had a bridge project manager with Brookdale Senior Living. Older adult recreation aide for the city of Sacramento, older adult service program assistant for El Dorado County. We have the RCFE administrator, which is considered an executive administrator for the core medical group, and a resource navigator for, I forget what this acronym stands for. It's like area agency aging something for. I'm sure you guys will tell me later. So next thing, what I want to do is show you the program inventory for gerontology and related programs that provide career pathways into jobs in the field of aging in the greater Sacramento area. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I know that both Julie and Angela are going to talk about this more later. So here I have a list of colleges, the programs that they offer, and the awards that are offered in those programs. And then I tied them to potential career pathways. That potential career pathway is an important piece for me because that's where I'm going to focus my energy on trying to like quantify demand for these jobs in these areas. I need to know those occupations. So we have American River College, which has about 10 different programs, all related to different aspects of gerontology. And then on the right-hand side, you see the occupations that are associated with those programs. There are also programs at Folsom Lake, Sacramento City, Sac State, and UC Davis is a little bit of an odd bird. I'll talk about that in just a second. But the Folsom Lake, Sacramento City, and the CSU programs, American River, gerontology, and social work. So, and those I know are some of the occupations that we're interested in when it comes to the non-clinical side of things. Now, UC Davis, odd bird program, human development and family studies. It does not specifically call out any focus on gerontology or aging. However, I included it in this pathway because of its potential to connect students into social work career pathways. So it's worth considering here as well. Now, you'll notice that one of my occupations over by ARC, facility managers, has a little bit of a star on it. And I have a note at the bottom of my screen that it says it may not be a good fit for gerontology just because of how that occupation is traditionally defined. If we go into ONET and look at the definitions for that, it's traditionally defined as a job that is focused on like building maintenance and events kind of within buildings. So that one might kind of, I'm not going to include it in the LMI in the next slide, and we might need to have a little bit more of a conversation about that. So occupational demand. So what I did here was I looked specifically at demand for occupations that are directly connected to American River College's programs. I focus on them exclusively because they have a really well kind of thought out connection point for each of their programs and the related occupations that they train to. So And I broke it down into like several areas that are represented here on the left. You got administrative support, business management, caregiving, recreation, and social support. And you have the occupations that are associated with that. For each one of these occupations, you have the historical number of jobs in 2019, the projected number of jobs in 2024, the projected change over the next 5 years, the annual openings, which is the number of job openings expected each year for the next 5 years, as well as the entry-level hourly earnings. When we are looking kind of at this data set, we want to pay attention to certain things. We want to say, hey, where are most of my jobs kind of in these occupations? Where is the bulk of those jobs concentrated? For me, I see it's concentrated in home health and personal care needs. We also want to kind of say, hey, which occupations are projected to grow versus which ones are projected to decline over the next 5 years, because that might give us an idea of how we should be kind of building up our program. Should we really be focusing on training towards occupations that seem to be phasing out in our area? We also want to pay attention to who has the most immediate need in terms of openings over the next few years. Where are the largest number of openings? And lastly, you want to pay attention to that hourly earnings things. For community colleges, it's essential that we train students to get into jobs that pay more than the living wage in our region. The living wage for a region right now is about $13.18 an hour. That is not that much money, and I know it's not minimum wage. I believe at minimum wage, I don't remember where we're at minimum wage right now, but I know it's higher than that. But what that calculation really is like how much money does a single adult living in an area need to be able to achieve basic needs like housing, food, some transportation, depending on how you think about that. It is not really for thriving, I would say. It is not really for anybody who has a whole bunch of student loans and is trying to pay them off, because you wouldn't be able to meet that off of the $13 an hour. It's just for like, what are your basic needs? How much money you have to make for those basic needs? But looking at this group as a whole, we see that there are a huge number of jobs in this category, and I'm going to address that in just a second. There are more than 73,000 jobs in these occupations in the greater Sacramento region. Now, these are not all gerontology focused jobs. These are all the jobs in all industries for these occupations. So these occupations can be found in a variety of industries, and they may not be working in the field of aging. They're probably working elsewhere too. And it's important to keep that in context, because for me, once again, gerontology, I don't have a great way of going in and saying, out of this whole entire pie, what proportion of these jobs is specifically related to gerontology. Okay, so closing. Just a couple of conclusions, and then we'll go into questions and answers. Conclusions. Older adults represent a significant proportion of the population in the greater Sacramento region and will continue to do so. We need people and systems to support our older residents, just straight up. Number 2, jobs in geriatrics, i.e. healthcare and caregiving, seems to overshine non-clinical gerontology job offerings in the greater Sacramento region. This is based off of my keyword search. I'm not saying that those other jobs don't exist. I'm saying that we tend to be concentrated in geriatrics right now. To figure out those non-clinical or non-healthcare related jobs, we need to do a little bit more digging. We need to be able to go in and pinpoint like, hey, this is what I really want to focus on. For community colleges and other training providers, there are opportunities for social service career pathways. My colleague recently did a report on mental and behavioral health and was looking at the demand for those occupations. That report speaks broadly to the demand for social work, mental and behavioral health type of occupations across the region, but further research could eliminate certain employers to be targeting and whatnot. And then lastly, really simple, yes, there are business and management opportunities, largely in the marketing and sales kind of area, but then also some other areas as well. Okay, so that's it. That concludes my presentation, what I kind of wanted to share today. I'm going to stop my screen share and open up for questions.
Thank you, Ebony. I know that was a tremendous amount of work looking at several different databases to try to pull out information that wasn't clearly defined. So I don't see any questions right now, so I'm going to go ahead and let you know that if you have any questions, put them in the chat and we'll see if Ebony can answer them there if she's able to hang around for a few minutes. I know she has a busy day ahead of her. And I want to introduce to you our keynote speaker, who is Jeannee Parker Martin. Jeannee Parker Martin is President and CEO of Leading Age California and Vice Chairman of the Corridor Holdings Group. She is a leader in the strategic development of healthcare programs and has been active in healthcare planning, development, and delivery of care for 30 years. She has assisted organizations around the world, including for the World Health Organization and the U.S. Department of State. She was appointed to the California Master Plan for Aging Stakeholder Advisory Committee to chart the roadmap for California's older adult population. Jeannee received her master's in public health from Yale University School of Medicine and Bachelor of Science in Nursing from Georgetown. Jeannee has received numerous awards at local, state, and national level, serves on think tanks and numerous advisory councils. I'll hand it over to you, Jeannee.
Great, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and so honored to be your keynote presenter. I think I'm going to share my screen now, so hopefully this will work just fine. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you see it in full screen mode?
It is not right now in full screen mode.
Okay, there you go. How's that?
That is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, it's always hard to see when it's on your own computer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was a very hard act to follow. I just have to say the data was so interesting on so many levels. And I particularly was interested because I think that we might have underestimated the number of workers that are required in the future if in fact the Sacramento data was correct and that there were 378,000 job postings in that particular data. So across the state, I don't think we estimated that a much greater number than that for workers and at least workers related to our field. So very, very interesting data. Thank you so much for that presentation. I also want to thank Lorinda Reynolds for inviting me to speak today because she was the one who sent me out the request and asked if I would speak. And I used that report, the Center of Excellence report, and read it with a lot of interest because I thought all the data was so fascinating and there's so much intersectionality of various disciplines across the field and also in the field of housing care and services for older adults. And if you noted in the data that was presented, there was a comment about home care workers and the personal care workers in the home, and those they were child care workers. And with those particular positions, they make significantly more money than most of our providers that are working as personal care aides or in other disciplines in our field. So quite interesting. So I always like to start out by talking a little bit about who Leading Age California is. We are a trade association based in Sacramento, and we focus primarily on nonprofit providers of senior living, essentially, housing, care, and services for older adults. So life plan communities, which you may be more familiar with the term continuing care retirement communities, skilled nursing facilities, assisted living facilities, senior affordable housing, and home and community-based services, including home health and hospice providers. Our mission is to advance housing, care, and services for older adults, and we do that through so many ways, through advocacy, education, public awareness. You may be familiar with our Age On, Rage On campaign that we did a few years ago that is still being used today. Today, I was asked to talk very briefly about first the Master Plan for Aging and its workforce implications, and a bit about the Leading Age California Workforce Blueprint for Action. I'm going to do this in just a few minutes, probably about 20 minutes, and then I have time possibly for a couple of questions at the very end, and I think those are being taken through the chat. So most of you probably are familiar that in June 2019, Governor Newsom issued an executive order calling for the creation of a master plan for aging. The executive order affirmed the priority of the health and well-being of older Californians and the need for policies that promote healthy aging throughout the state and throughout the lifespan. It's called for a blueprint for the state government, local government, the private sector, and philanthropy to prepare the state for the coming demographic changes and continue California's leadership in aging, disability, and equity. And I'm very pleased to announce that our own Eric Dowdy, who is our Chief Government Affairs Officer, was appointed to the continuing Olmstead Commission, now called the California Aging and Disability Committee. In mid-2019, related to the Master Plan for Aging, I was fortunate to be appointed to that committee, along with 33 other colleagues. So it was the Governor's Master Plan for Aging Stakeholder Advisory Committee. And I will say that Lorinda was a stalwart at our meetings and provided interesting questions and important feedback as the Stakeholder Advisory Committee considered the roadmap of the future for our older adults. COVID-19 underscored, importantly, the systematic disparities in housing care and services for older adults, as well as disparities by race, economics, and geography. These are all things that you are addressing every day, so not new information to you. But the Master Plan for Aging was a really diligent effort, I think, and very thoughtful effort with informed data and information, experts in the myriad care aspects and delivery aspects for older adults, including academics, providers, advocates, consumers, and so many others, including our government officials. So why a Master Plan for Aging now? As you can see by this particular graph, it's very easy to identify that we used to have a much greater younger population. This is called the Christmas tree graph on the left, which was from 1990. And in just a relatively short period of time, that graphic has almost become rotund. And we expect that continue to be rounder and rounder in the years ahead. So by 2030, which is only 9 years away, we're going to have a much different population in California than we had in 1990, with a much older population, as you can see by the gray line running across the age 65 group. The other aspect of this change is that diversity is increasing in the state. Just look at the beige shrinkage on the left-hand side of the screen, where you can see the shrinkage of whites in the middle to the growth of the other color bands. So those represent different ethnic groups, different races in our state. So while we know the number of people over age 65 is growing, the diversity of the population is also growing. The racial, ethnic, and religious diversity has put pressure on our traditional workforce ideology, how we think about workforce, and also pressure on the perception and delivery of housing care and services to older adults. By 2030, 10.8 million Californians will be an older adult, I amongst them, making up 1/4 of the state's population. So that's a huge increase in the population that will need caregivers, workers of all types across the field serving older adults. The median age in California by 2050 will be 43. So half the people will be over 43 and half the people will be under 43. The old age dependency ratio will be near 42. So this means essentially that there will be a much greater burden to the economy and to the workforce because there will be so few people under 40, both younger, who are going to be serving older adults. And another data point that I think is really important as people turn 65, retirees are expected to increase by over 70% between 2020 and 2030 in California. So that's actually why it's happening now. The master plan for aging is probably way late in its development. It should have been done decades ago. And I think there were conversations decades ago. So it's long overdue, but here now we have it. The master plan for aging is a preeminent roadmap for us to create a future for Californians of all ages. Additionally, the master plan for aging embedded social justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion in its efforts, with 3 cross-cutting priorities across all goal areas: ageism, research and data, and dementia-friendly. So what does the master plan for aging actually do? It outlines 5 bold goals and 23 strategies to build a California for all ages by 2030. It also includes a data dashboard on aging to measure our progress and a local playbook to drive partnerships that help pull these goals together. So you can see on the slide that there are 5 bold goals. Goal 1 is housing for all stages and ages. We will live where we choose as we age in communities that are age, disability, and dementia friendly and climate and disaster ready. The target is to build millions of new housing options to age well. And we were so excited to see this as the #1 goal for the master plan for aging, since housing is such a critical aspect for all older adults, and those that are unhoused currently are the fastest growing population in that segment. So we're excited that housing took such a high priority. The second goal is health reimagined. We will have access to the services we need to live at home in our communities and to optimize our health and quality of life. And the target is to close the equity gap so that everyone has opportunities to receive services and also increase life expectancy, not based on your geography, your race, or your income level. Goal 3 is inclusion and equity, not isolation. And we learned so much about this with older adults during 2020 and the pandemic. We will have lifelong opportunities for work, volunteering, engagement, and leadership, and will be protected from isolation, discrimination, abuse, neglect, and exploitation. Goal 4 is caregiving that works. And that's so important, as you heard in the data. We'll be prepared for and supported through the rewards and challenges of caring for aging loved ones. The target is 1 million high-quality caregiving jobs. And the 5th goal is affordable aging, which is so critical when we hear statistics that most people have not saved even $100,000 for their retirement and are dependent on Social Security for their income coming in. We will have an economic security for as long as we live. And so much is going on today at the state level to help secure housing, to help secure the right health services, to help build equity in all of our discussions, to get caregiving that really works across the state in all aspects of caregiving, and also to make aging affordable by having certain aspects of transportation, parks, et cetera, nearby. So those are the primary goals, and then the 23 strategies are outlined in the document as well. This particular slide is important because in addition to the 5 bold goals, the executive order issued in June of 2019 called for the creation of a long-term services and supports subcommittee that submitted its report to the governor in May 2020. And these recommendations were integrated into the master plan for aging. So this is what this is a screenshot of the website, and I point it out because you should go to that website for more information, how you can learn more about the 5 bold goals, the first 2 years of initiatives that are being targeted. You can learn about the accessibility of information in the data dashboard, and so on. So there are local playbooks for you, and there are webinars through the Master Plan for Aging in Action locations on that screen. One important element that had, I think, previously not been well understood is the language diversity in our state. Although we might have said, oh, in our community, there are 20 different languages spoken. This website has been translated into more than 100 languages, and you can see them here. So you can go to mpa.aging.ca.gov to learn more about the Master Plan for Aging, and we hope that you'll use it in your work so that you can integrate some of the strategies and the concepts that are so critical and so well laid out, I think, in the Master Plan. That will be a living, breathing area of the work that is happening going forward. Coincidentally, Leading Age California, my organization, already was working on our workforce blueprint for action. We convened our workforce situation room over a 3-year period to create a blueprint for action that will guide us over the next 10 years. So totally coincidentally. But at the same time, we were able to yield significant information from the Master Plan for Aging as there's intersectionality in the creation of jobs, career advancement, and training elements between the two bodies of work. Our work resulted in one unifying goal: to grow the workforce in our member communities by at least 10%. And we actually targeted a number of 16,000 jobs because we were targeting just our membership. We're hopeful that we're going to partner with other provider associations who also have an interest in building the workforce in the provider community, not to say that in other situations that workforce isn't critical. There also are 6 strategic initiatives in our plan, and also that relate to strategy, public policy, education, technology, public awareness, and workforce development. Our bold plan will underpin the growth of workers in housing, care, and services in California in our population. So before I take any questions, I'd like to show 2 short video clips to illustrate the real people we're serving, both in the Master Plan for Aging and the Leading Age California Workforce Blueprint for Action. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Green.
I was a California school teacher and a probation counselor. Kind of workaholic. I worked 2 jobs for 10 years. So I kind of pushed the button, and after that, I kind of fell off. At the hospital, I guess I became a regular customer there, although it didn't seem like it to me. And a social worker, I was talking to a social worker, and she asked me the question, was I homeless, which I was, and I answered yes. I swallowed my pride and I said yes, because I was trying to get the bus there to go to a home that wasn't there.
What brings you joy?
Every day when I get up and they're not throwing dirt on me, and I say hello to the world, talk to the universe, God, and I'm in my right mind, and then I get my blank piece of paper out and I start writing.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, Green. Great. Well, gosh, we want to welcome Rosewood Court, Human Good Community, to our 60/60 tour. We're so excited. You know, this is our 60th anniversary at Leading Age California. So Alice, welcome to you and to your residents and to your community. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about Rosewood Court.
Rosewood Court is one of the communities with human good. We managed the building under a project called PRAC 202, which is basically a supportive system for elderly with low income.
Hi, Herminia.
Hi, Mom. Good morning. No, I just started that when I was in the elementary. I played the piano through memory only, hearing. I don't read notes. I did not study piano. That's only my own.
Is it so? What? How old were you when you first played the piano?
Grade 5. And when I got married at the age of 21, I had no more piano already because our work was to attend to the children, go to school, work. So no more piano for 50 years. When I came to California, I revived my music. Because in the adult daycare center, there is a piano there. So before our session, I used to practice.
Great. Well, so Leading Age California is celebrating its 60th anniversary this year. And to celebrate our members, we launched a 60/60 tour. And those 2 video clips were from the 60/60 tour, which actually were hour-long video recordings. We'd hoped to do the tour in a van, but we hired a production company and did it on Zoom instead for obvious reasons. To date, we've interviewed over 60 residents, administrators, and leaders. And if you check out our YouTube site on YouTube, Leading Age California, you'll see some of our celebrity cameos wishing us a happy anniversary. And also you can hear and learn more about some of the residents and their life experiences as they've lived in senior affordable housing or a life plan community or been served in home and community-based services. Focusing on who we serve helps to illustrate the need for competent and qualified workers in all aspects of housing care and services for older adults, regardless of the setting, and helps accelerate our policies, our education, and public awareness work. While the Master Plan for Aging is a target at a much larger population, the whole state, since we are all aging one day at a time, the intersectionality between our 2 plans is really important. And I look forward to continuing this work in the years ahead as we build a workforce and caregivers to serve all older adults. So thank you, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you so much, Jeannee. We appreciate all the rich information that you brought, and the videos were fantastic. And thank you for your work on behalf of Leading Age. Is there any questions for Jeannee? And I will actually open up also if there were any questions for Ebony, since we didn't have time for that. We have a couple of minutes for questions, and then we will still be able to give you a 5-minute break. There's some very positive comments in the chat that have come in, very appreciative of what you've shared.
I can answer one question that's in the chat about 1970s nonprofit housing corporations receive federal funding to build housing for low-income seniors. Will nonprofit corporations be involved in the construction and development of communities that will develop for all? Yes, that's the short answer. There will be many different organizations who are involved in continuing development. And I think as we continue to not accept tent cities and those without housing, that we want permanent housing for everyone, this will become an evolution of new housing and new opportunities for not supportive housing in the context of what people might define it, but in the context of housing that supports everyone as they age. And I don't see any other questions. If they're there, I don't see them, but I'm happy to scroll through after and answer any I can through the chat, so you can keep moving.
Thank you. I noticed, Jacqueline, that you are off mute. Do you have a question? I don't mean to put you on the spot. Did you have something to share?
That was my question.
Oh, it was. Okay.
Yeah.
If there's more you want to add, you go ahead.
Yeah, I used to work for the State Housing Department of Housing and Community Development with Arnold Sternberg back in the late 70s. And we did partner a lot with nonprofits to build housing, low-income senior housing. And the advantage of having the nonprofits was that they're nonprofit. They're not going to turn around and sell it for profit. You know, their sole interest is to build housing for the seniors and keep it, you know, affordable. So, you know,
yeah. Great and important comments, Jacqueline. And I think paired with Ebony's comments earlier, again, which were so rich, I think there's great opportunity to kind of build together and meld these conversations. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. We will give you a 5-minute, maybe 6-minute, depending on how your clock is looking right now. You can join us back here at 2:15, and we will get started again with our panel discussion. So we'll give you a brief break and come back at 2:15. Thanks so much.
Okay, I'm gonna head out.
Thanks,
So I'll see
Ebony.
y'all later, okay?
Thank you, Ebony. Thank you
Of
so much.
course.
Appreciate your time and your expertise.
Very welcome. Okay. Take care.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I'm here, but what happened? No, you're gonna have to go here if you want to make this happen. Okay. Jesse, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Jen.
Okay. My keyboard and everything just froze up, so I just wanted to make sure. If all is good, I'm just gonna untouch anything, but if you need to mute or unmute me, can you do that from your end? I'll try from here.
Yeah,
Okay,
sure thing.
thank you.
Well, welcome back, everyone. We're going to get started here. with our panel in just 1 second. Let me introduce briefly our panel to you, letting you know who we have with us. We have Jan Trefiro, Vice President of Workforce and Professional Development with the California Assisted Living Association. We have Janine Thorpe, Director of the Ethel McLeod Hart Senior Center. We have Michelle Nevins, Executive Director, Del Oro Caregiver Resource Center. Mary Erickson, CEO and Executive Director of Mercy McMahon Terrace. And Diane Puckett, Founding Executive Director of the Peg Taylor Center. We're so grateful to have this illustrious group of employer and industry representatives to provide us information that we need for developing effective training programs for the occupational data that we saw earlier. I'm going to ask some questions to the panel, and hopefully we'll have a few minutes left at the end for questions from the audience. The first question that I want to ask is going to be for each member of our panel, and I'm asking them to provide a brief overview of your organization or business, your role, the main services that you provide, and background on your workforce, including the number of employees, how you recruit them, general skill level, and educational attainment. That's a big question. If you get 2/3 of that, we're good. So Jan, could we start with you?
Most definitely, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you today. As mentioned, I'm with the California Assisted Living Association. We too are a trade organization that supports senior living operators throughout the state of California, encompassing assisted living, memory care, and full campus offerings. And our goal primarily is to support our members on a number of fronts, of course, advocacy, education, leadership, providing tools and resources. And specifically on the workforce front, we work to raise awareness of senior living as a career choice. One of the things that we've observed over time is we're not on the map as much as we'd like to be as far as a profession goes. And so Cal has worked very hard over these past years to change that dynamic, to heighten awareness, and to have more people who enter the profession do so with intent versus having fallen into it or learned about it. Obviously, there's benefits to both of those things, but our goal, again, is to heighten awareness about this profession. And we do this in a number of ways. We primarily, as the association, try to connect job seekers with prospective employers, our members, those operating the communities. We do this through offering career panel discussions as guests for community colleges and universities and vocational schools. We offer scholarships for students, job seekers, military veterans, and so forth to apply to attend our conferences, our educational opportunities. One, to learn more about the profession, but two, to once again give them that opportunity to connect face-to-face with those prospective employers, to hear from people who are working in the profession and learn about the many opportunities available to them. And there's just a number of other ways we do this as well, by developing tools, resources, career maps, flyers, and so forth. And the really amazing thing about this profession, this senior living profession, serving seniors in this residential setting, is that people with a variety of skills and backgrounds can find a home in senior living. And additionally, the pace for advancement, I think, definitely outpaces a lot of other professions. So someone coming in who demonstrates the desire and the skills and who can grow those skills once they enter the profession often finds that they have opportunity to grow from there. And so our goal is just to try to make those connections, to support those who are interested in exploring the profession, invite them to learn more about the current state of the profession and all that the dynamics that go with that, and go from there. So long-winded answer, but I hope it gives you a sense of what we do.
No, it was a great answer. Thank you so much, Jan. Thank you for the work that you do. Jeannine, I'm going to ask you if you could answer the same question. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your organization, and your workforce.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I am Jeannee Thorpe. I'm the director of the Ethel McLeod Hart Senior Center in Sacramento. We're part of the it's a multi-purpose senior center that's part of the city of Sacramento. It's in the middle of a park off of J Street. And our mission is to create an environment for our aging population that is supportive and welcoming and supports their independence and affirms their dignity. And I'm actually new to this position since COVID. So I've missed the hubbub of when the center is open. We offer all kinds of classes, strengthen classes not only that help to keep assure healthy aging, but also, you know, stimulate the mind, and just different classes, writing, a lot of writing classes. People are really enjoying that, some cooking classes. And when COVID hit, we went completely virtual. So we're still offering several classes virtually. And the little silver lining in that, which I feel like is going to carry on once we're a little more back to doing the, you know, a little bit of a norm, is that people are really enjoying, you know, being able to utilize Zoom and Teams, and that opens a whole other area of being able to reach them. And my goal, I'm hoping, is that we'll be able to, you know, focus on that and reach people who otherwise wouldn't have been able to come to the center. So that's sort of, you know, something, those types of things, that those silver linings because of this situation. I have 5 staff members right now, and 2 of them are graduates from the Sac State Gerontology program. We have had interns that work there. Both of them were interns from Sac State. I myself am also a graduate of the Sacramento State Gerontology program, but we've been recruiting, and I look for people definitely who have had this type of experience with the aging population, and just different. I don't know. I like it when someone is pretty well versed in a broad area. So,
thank you, Michelle. Or Jeannine. Thank you.
Jeannine.
Sorry, Jeannine. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you giving that explanation. It sounds like the Sac State program has been a good funnel of individuals into your organization.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. Michelle, would you be able to provide us an introduction about your organization and your role, and what is happening with your workforce?
Absolutely. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Michelle Nevins, and I'm the Executive Director of Del Oro Caregiver Resource Center. We're a private nonprofit agency, community-based organization. We serve 13 Northern California counties. Our whole mission is to improve the well-being of family caregivers, unpaid family caregivers. We achieve our mission through a variety of different services, including family consultation, respite care, counseling, legal services, education, training, and support groups. The bulk of our staff are actually family consultants. The minimum requirement for that position, who they work directly with our clients, is a bachelor's degree in social work, gerontology, or a related field. We often have the benefit of having licensed individuals because they want to work with our population, even though it's not a requirement to be licensed. Those folks can do counseling in our office instead of subcontracting some of that out. However, we have kind of a combination right now of social workers who are licensed. We have counselors that are licensed. We have some associates working towards licensure, and we have 2 gerontology graduates from Sac State on our staff. The other kind of part of our workforce is administrative folks, and most of us have nonprofit experience. I have a degree in social work, a degree in business, and a degree in leadership and organizational studies. When I was getting my degree in social work, there was no gerontology classes or degree. So I actually just took all of the classes that I possibly could with older adults in mind. With regards to hiring our staff, we try to have as little turnover as possible. We like to keep our folks. But when we do have turnover, which happens a couple of times a year, usually, our staff is small. We usually try to tap into our network of community partners, whether it's other professionals, networking events, meetings, you know, some of the departments at Sac State that have had graduates. But we also look to nonprofit organizations, Impact Foundry here locally, of course, the hiring websites as well, LinkedIn, that sort of thing. And of course, old-fashioned just word of mouth, of course, when we look to hire folks.
Thank you. Thanks very much for that. You have 3 degrees. It's like a trifecta. Thank you. Mary, if we could ask you the same question, tell us about yourself and your organization and about your workforce.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today. I am the CEO and Executive Director at Mercy McMahon Terrace, which is part of Dignity Health. So my assisted living community is actually owned by a hospital network, which puts us in a very unique position. It's very rare. We're also a nonprofit organization, which also is really, really rare in assisted living. A lot of my competitors in the area or my peers in the area work for large assisted living corporations that are focused on their business model being just about assisted living care. So I pretty much have the best spot in Sacramento. I'm really, really fortunate. I have about 100 line employees, people that are, you know, boots on the ground in our operations, and a team of 8 managers. We have nurses, caregivers, food service workers, housekeepers, facilities managers, and technicians. So we have a lot of diverse opportunities here. We are unique because of the fact that we have 24-hour nursing care, but we're not a skilled nursing. What our goal kind of every day is to try to make the bridge as long as possible from assisted living to skilled nursing. So we're kind of pushing the envelope inside the regulatory requirements for assisted living to be able to keep people in a more comfortable environment than skilled nursing to the best of our ability. And having nurses available 24/7 gives us some of those options that some of the other senior living communities do not have the capability of. So I feel incredibly lucky for that. We have a goal to let all of our people die in place here because we consider this their home. It's a wonderful, wonderful place to work. Assisted living is an incredibly gratifying career path. You feel like you're working with your grandma and your grandpa all day, and you're helping people and you're caring for people. And so much of what we do is about giving love and getting love. You know, we're kind of in the business of love, and there isn't anything better than that. So we're very fortunate. We hire people from the nursing schools, the LVN schools. We have a lot of turnover in our staff. I hate to say that, but we hire every week. We pretty much just keep our job postings every week. We try to do job fairs. We interview people every week, and we put through offers every single week for staff in our community. Part of the reason we have a high turnover is because we have a really good career path into the hospital network. And so people kind of come in and they become part of Dignity Health, and that gives them the opportunity to advance in other directions. So we'd like to keep them longer because it's hard on our residents to lose them, but we certainly offer opportunities. So the bulk of our staff, we have 100 people that work here. We have probably 65 to 70% of them are in the direct care portion of our business. And then the rest of them are in ancillary things like food service and housekeeping and facilities management. It's a great place. I'm really lucky.
Thank you. Appreciate very positive projection. And we're in the business of love. I think that is very quotable. Thank you.
Well, it's true. I tell everybody that this job is perfect for me because I'm a hugaholic and the people that live here can't run away very fast.
Well, keep that in mind if we do a non-virtual event with you, right?
Yeah, I felt so bad when I was listening to Jeannee from the Heart Center, because you haven't had the experience. We've been so sad this year because the vitality of our community has been so different because of COVID, and we're starting to see it kind of reignite. It's like a flower blooming again, and these little buds are coming forward now as we're able to kind of relax some of the regulatory standards that we had for the last year. And so I'm really excited for you to be able to see what it's like to have seniors gathered, doing things together and engaging together in processes. I think it's just spectacular. We can't wait. We're starting to get back to it. So I'm really excited for you to experience that.
Thank you. I'm excited too.
Thank you. Diane, I want to give you the same question. If you could tell us about your organization and your role in the organization and about your workforce.
My pleasure, thank you. And I am Diane Puckett, the founding executive director of the Peg Taylor Center for Adult Day Healthcare, but also here representing adult day services in general, because the Peg Taylor Center is just one part of a larger network of programs across the state that offer many more opportunities to students than our single program alone. Jeannee talked about the master plan on aging, and adult day healthcare in particular addresses every aspect of aging. If you think of aging as being, gerontology as being aging across the lifespan, our model of program, adult day healthcare, which is different from adult daycare, was actually designed to support independence across the lifespan. So we serve people from age 18 to 100 plus, but most of our participants are older adults. Our program was established 35 years ago to serve the rural communities of Butte, Glenn, and Tehama counties. But across the state, we have about 300 adult day healthcare centers, and then we have thousands of adult daycare programs. Many of them serve adults with developmental disabilities, some of whom are younger and some of whom are older. So when you think about the demographics that Jeannee was describing and the change in, the fluctuation to where we have so many more older adults, fewer younger adults to provide the care, independence throughout the age span becomes extremely important. And that's really the goal that all of us are seeking. We're seeking to help people to be as independent as possible as they age and they go through various life circumstances. We know that, people will have health crises come up that will impact their ability to continue living in their own home, that may change, their ability to work at an older age. All kinds of things go on. But if we can continue to support people to recover from illness, to keep on going, then we can really have them, help them to have a high quality of life, no matter what their age, no matter where they're living, and to live in the community setting of their choice. So adult day healthcare programs like the Peg Taylor Center offer multifaceted services to ensure that while people are going through a period of health crises, or if they have ongoing health conditions, they have all the support that they need to be able to maintain as much independence as possible, get their care needs addressed, continue their rehabilitation, be with others, stay engaged, not be isolated at home, continue to have a meaningful quality of life even as they seek to recover, or they just continue to fight to maintain as much independence as they can. So our teams consist of a professional interdisciplinary team, social workers, RNs, physical, occupational, and speech therapists, recreational therapists, nutritionists, dietitians, and so on. And we also have what might be regarded as more entry-level positions, and program specialists who are equivalent to home health aides and certified nursing aides is how you might think of them in terms of the labor market analysis. But these are really excellent opportunities for people who are interested in working with older adults to come into our adult day healthcare programs or adult daycare programs to really use it as a laboratory for learning about working with older adults, because we're addressing the full range of things that are going on in our participants' lives. And people will come to our program for 1 to 5 days a week, whatever is appropriate in order to maintain their independence, and then they're able to go back to live in their own homes or live in their residential care settings, and really continue to stay engaged.
Thank you, Diane. I appreciate it. There was a lot of good information, labor market information and data presented earlier before we started the panel discussion. So I want to ask you about that. Was there anything in the data and information that surprised you? And Michelle, we'll start with you this time.
Sure. Just a couple of thoughts. In particular, our agency subcontracts respite care with a number of in-home care agencies throughout our 13 counties. And the hourly earnings for personal care aides seemed very low from what I'm hearing. Most in-home care agencies are paying their workers. That, of course, the minimum wage just increased, of course, in January up to $15 an hour. But prior to that, many of the ones, especially in the Sacramento, Placer, Yolo, El Dorado County area, were already paying $15 to $17 an hour. So that surprised me. It seemed very low to me. That was one thing. I also thought that, there's a lot of folks that are in nonprofit management that maybe wasn't included in some of the data that could certainly be added to the the numbers as far as the management and administrative piece. Nonprofit does make up a large amount of employment, so it might be something to further pursue. But by and large, everything looked pretty spot on to what we experienced as far as employment and in the workforce. So thank you.
Thank you for your thoughts. And I know Ebony had to leave for another call. I would say we saw something similar with the wages when we were looking at retail and hospitality. And I think sometimes it's pulled over as an annualized figure. And so when positions are less than full-time, it drops that wage in the calculation. So I can't say that for sure for COE, but I can imagine that that might be a contributing factor. But I thank you for calling those two things out. And Jeannine, any thoughts on the information and data that was presented earlier?
Well, I missed a bit of it because I was in that other meeting, but I'd probably agree with Michelle that it seems fairly spot on. I feel like there might be a little bit of confusion with the exactly what the field of gerontology is and how that's conveyed, across different platforms, where people would search for jobs. And so that being clarified might help. I feel like a lot of people that I've met think that geriatrics and gerontology is, one and the same, or just, in the same wheelhouse, but it's so different and it's so specific in its own discipline that I feel like that could maybe help. That was broadened or clarified, even with some curriculum that was offered to students. Although I will say the curriculum at Sac State was pretty amazing. But yeah, so that's my little, just from the part I caught the last part of her data analysis, and that was sort of, I had that in mind about that, because she was saying like what keywords she would, you know, put in a search.
Yes, the searching through job posting databases is a little bit of a rough science because it really depends on what they put in the postings versus what the actual job is. And some of that is marketing related. So I appreciate your thoughts. Diane, any thoughts on the data and occupational information shared earlier?
I think probably similar to what other people have said, and I appreciated Dr. Donna Jensen put some comments in the chat box too about various positions that gerontology leads to that are spot on. Also, I think that in talking with students, for instance, and looking at where they might go from gerontology, that if you look at their broader life experience, oftentimes people have done a variety of things that they can bring to adding to their learning about gerontology, can bring to going into various fields that really address then the needs of older adults effectively within that field. I'm thinking of things like legal services. The Area Agency on Aging was mentioned, and they provide quite a few different kinds of, or conduit to a lot of different kinds of services, including legal services targeted to older adults. So information and assistance specialists, you know, emergency service workers. You know, we're up here impacted by the Camp Fire, and in the aftermath of Camp Fire, you know, one of the critical needs is really for people to be able to support older adults in their recovery from the disaster and to understand their needs. So I think that you have to use a broad, you know, brush to look at the market analysis, but also I think that perhaps it reveals a lot of jobs that have a lot of turnover too, because those are going to be the most common postings when you have to keep reposting positions. So looking beyond that to help people find their niche can reveal a lot of other opportunities.
Well, good insights. Thank you so much, Diane. Mary, your thoughts on the occupational and information that was shared earlier?
Well, I wasn't surprised by too many things in there. I feel like one of the disconnects that we have in like a Sac State gerontology program is that if you look at my employee makeup, I've got 100 employees, but only 8 of them are really in a management field. So I think it's hard for students coming out of a program in gerontology to recognize that you're not going to come out and make a really high salary right away. That your next step is to decide, okay, how dedicated am I to becoming in my position? I do well in my position. I'm happy with what I make in my position. And I feel like there's a lot of young people that could easily work themselves into becoming the head of an assisted living community. There's tremendous openings, but there's some things you got to do along the way that aren't quite as pleasant. And I think for the line staff, we depend so much on the immigrant population and people coming in that are willing to start from ground zero and work their way up. And I think that for students who have a college education, you come out with an expectation of where you're going to start, where you're going to fall in the hierarchy of things. And sometimes in elderly care, that doesn't always translate to a quickly gratifying, high-paying position. So I'm not sure if anybody else shares those same thoughts. I know that there's more career opportunity than ever right now because of COVID. I think that COVID really changed things for a lot of people that were in assisted living. And I think a lot of people are starting to leave these positions, creating more opportunity for new people coming in. I think the people that were in the positions that went through this past year with COVID just weren't quite as equipped to do a completely different job than what they've been doing for the last 10 or 15 years. I know for myself, last week alone, I received 3 recruitment calls for executive director positions in a senior living. So the career opportunities are tremendous because of the growth in the field, because of the scales tipping to become a higher older population, but you know, kind of balancing out all of the pieces in between are going to be a challenge.
Wow, thank you. Thanks very much for that description. My next question for you is, can you talk about the challenges you have in recruiting for open positions? And Mary kind of alluded to that already. What specific skills and degrees are you looking for? And is the acceleration of automation changing what you're looking for? And Diane, would you start us off today?
Yes, first I would say it has probably always been challenging, because if we're looking for a person who really is coming to our field with a high level of respect for older adults and readiness to learn further, and those qualities that we want to have of responsibility and integrity, that we need to recruit by expressing that. So what I found is really important is whenever we're recruiting is to include in the information we're providing about our program, you know, descriptions that will interest people who are coming to this field because of, you know, in essence, their interest in gerontology, their interest in older adults, and the fact that they really care, you know, as Mary was describing. And also, we find that frequently word of mouth is extremely helpful for recruiting certain positions. But in terms of specific positions that we have in adult day healthcare, sometimes they do require particular degrees. You know, our licensed professionals, of course, have to have that license and that educational background. But our program specialists, the program assistants, have a more general kind of background that we can seek, and they can often advance and learn through, you know, being a part of our program, because they're working closely with this full team, so they get a chance to see actually the entire world of adult services, and I think that's very helpful. And we hear that from students as well, that it's really quite a laboratory for being able to progress.
Thank you. Mary, if I punt it back to you, can you tell us about specific skills and certifications you look for when recruiting? What are your hardest positions to fill? And if the acceleration of automation, the telehealth, or anything that's occurred, like you mentioned, because of COVID, has changed what you're recruiting for?
We haven't really changed what we're recruiting for because of COVID. I think that we're a little bit different. Some of the strategies that we've deployed are not going to be popular on this panel, because, for instance, we tend to not hire certified nursing assistants because we lose them more quickly than people that are just coming in without a certification and want to be a caregiver. So although it's nice and we love it, we love having CNAs, we know that we don't retain them as long as we retain just a caregiver that's not licensed. We have a hard time. Our biggest turn, we need caregivers all the time. We hire nurses pretty frequently, but we manage to hold on to them longer. But the big place is the caregiving, the hands-on caregiving, people that have the heart. We sometimes hire people with no experience just based on their personality. If we feel like this person gets it, this person understands that they want to do this, because I've had caregivers. I had one caregiver say to me, she was a lovely caregiver who I just adored. And I said, "We are so lucky to have you. I'm so glad you're on our team." And her response to me was, "I do this because I hope someday when I'm older, somebody will take care of me." And so I think a person like that just gets it. They get it. And that's what we need. We need people with that spirit. And I don't know how much of that comes from education or how much of that comes from upbringing, but it's what we need.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeannine. I'm going to ask you the same question. What are the positions that are hard to fill? What specific skills, certifications, and if there's anything related to the increase in technology use that has changed what you're recruiting for?
I'm definitely going to agree with Mary before I like dive into anything else, because I remember early in my career, I was a CNA, and then I ended up training others. And I remember thinking, I wonder how I can train compassion and, you know, and love. And I mean, I felt like I could inspire it, but looking for people like that, like Mary said, that express that, and they have that genuine love of the care, which, I mean, I definitely did. And when I did some lobbying, that's what I missed. I missed being, you know, having that ability to one-on-one and just, you know, interact with them. But so since I'm relatively new to the Heart Center, we actually are recruiting right now, and since we're an entity of the city, you know, we have to go by their very strict guidelines of how a position is put out there to begin with. But that being said, I also have the ability to, once I get a pool of people, to be able to kind of vet them or go through them and you know, sort of tell by what they've done in the past to call them in. And then once I have someone in front of me, I have a pretty good idea of what, you know, to look for in their, you know, in their presentation, which to me, again, is really important if they have that passion, you know, just that depth of passion to interact and to, you know, encourage healthy aging. And so like I said, I have 2 graduates from Sac State. Others have been in the city's park, because we're under the community parks enrichment, older adult services. So some of the staff have been there for quite some time, and I'm sort of looking now at it actually looking at them each individually and sort of finding what their strengths are, and sort of restructuring everything, which, you know, again, this year break has allowed. So, but I know that graduates are hoping for, you know, more pay, but and I feel like if you provide them with a mode of what I can't think of the word, elevating, advancing, then, and which is a good thing about the city, is that there are quite a few areas that they could advance in, even within our division in older adult services.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Michelle, in your organization, what are the specific skills, certifications you look for, anything related to technology advancing and what you're looking for?
Thank you for that question. And this is a hard one for me, because sometimes I'm not trying to sound like we're bragging, but we sometimes have a following of people that want to work for us. They've identified our agency, and because they believe in our mission or they like our population. So sometimes we have people that have submitted their resume and may interview a couple of times with us, because we have a couple of people that want to work for us. So I'm really grateful for that. And I'm not trying to brag, but I think it kind of speaks to the reputation of the agency too. So I'm thankful for that. With regards to kind of things that have changed, one of the roles, or one of the things that our family consultants would do, is often do home visits. And of course, during COVID, that's changed. And we always had a fair amount of telephone work, just the nature of serving 13 counties. But I think that's amplified for sure over the past year. So folks that are very comfortable with being on the telephone, know how to use the telephone, is important to have good communication skills, active listening. It's definitely different talking to someone over the phone than in person in our experience. Sometimes, you know, there's pros and cons to both, but certainly having to walk people through technology over the phone so that they can set up their Zoom link, we've had to do that. So people with patience and passion for our mission and our population is very important to us. So in a nutshell.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Our next question kind of relates to the intersection of business and entrepreneurship with gerontology and related careers. So I'll ask you first, Jeannine, do you see any entrepreneurial opportunities or new business trends that are coming in and serving the active living senior community from your perspective?
I feel like definitely technology. I've been in a couple training seminars where the technology, bringing technology to this population is so critical. I feel like if people can take this situation and sort of advance that, you know, see that, oh, if we could bring technology and provide that to, you know, these this population, how much broader, you know, our reach could be, and identifying just some of the gaps that are there, where you know, where they haven't been able to reach the population. But as far as, this is the one about the business trends, correct?
Correct.
Or the automation?
Business trends.
Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, I was talking with Dr. Jensen at Sac State about, you know, the interns, because that'll start up eventually as we reopen. And I feel like if someone that has that type of technological, you know, mind and can see, you know, think of different areas where they can, you know, bring technology and just different programs. And I know the Renaissance Society, when this first happened, they were so quick to pivot and just teach people, and they did seminars to help people to be comfortable using Zoom. So I feel like anything in that area is going to really carry on, because I feel like this will never, I feel like there'll always be Zoom and Teams and, you know, and live streaming.
Yeah.
And I think it's an excellent way to bring programs, socialization, all types of, you know, education to the aging, whether they can go to an actual building or they just have to stay at home or want to stay at home.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Diane, do you see any entrepreneurial opportunities or new business trends from your perspective?
Yes, tremendously. I think that it really ranges from the individual who wants to look to see where within existing organizations older adult needs can be better met. So, you know, that relates to what I was talking about across, you know, almost any business in the community. If 25 or 20% of the people in the community are older adults, then there's going to be a need to understand how to meet their needs, communicate effectively, and that use of technology too is really opening things up. So within that aspect of things, what we're finding, and this is one of the silver linings of this time, as was mentioned, is that when we add technology to many people's situations, their independence and their ability to connect and communicate really increases. So for people who have strong, ability to do that, and also to relate to what the needs of the individual they're working with are, things as basic as helping people learn how to effectively use their smartphones. I mean, that's really, you can go a long, long way with that. So besides starting programs, starting adult day services, starting adult day healthcare programs, all of this is, everything is going to be needed more of in the future. So I think there's tremendous entrepreneurial opportunities ahead.
Thank you. Mary, can you let us know from your perspective any entrepreneurial or business opportunities or trends that you see?
I don't think I can top what Diane just said. She is correct. I think that technology, little niche training for elderly people, the group coming into elderly care soon is going to be different than the group we're servicing now. The group that's coming in is going to be more tech savvy than the group we have right now. But because technology changes so rapidly, even this tech savvy group coming in may still be kind of struggling with some of the new things that are starting to come forward in the technology field. I think technology, I think that I think that people coming in the next group of people, in the next generation of people, are going to be really centered on more holistic things. And so I think people doing meditation trainings and holistic practices and yoga for elderly people, all of those types of things I think are going to become more important. Food, choices of food, choices of culinary options, and assisted living communities might actually need to start subcontracting out some of those services differently, because we're so doing kind of mass production food operations here. No matter how much we say we've got a restaurant and we're tailoring, we basically are still doing banquet style. And so in order for us to be effective, we may need to think about some of those meals that people are ordering now that come where all the ingredients are ready to go. And some of our residents might participate in some of those types of things more. Those are just thoughts, right or wrong.
Yeah, very interesting. Thank you. Appreciate it. Michelle, can you tell us what you see from your perspective, entrepreneurial business trends?
Kind of putting technology aside a little bit, I actually see a need for choice and options that allow our clients, in particular caregivers, the ability to get the services that they need quicker and more easily. For example, I think of there's a geriatric psychiatrist in one of our counties that does concierge type service. She's not affiliated with any type of healthcare system, and she charges private pay, and people, she's booked. And I feel like that type of service where it's personalized and individualized, and they have access to her and can get their questions answered for a fee they're willing to pay, because they're so desperate to actually problem solve with people, is important. Things that allow people to be independent, give them choice, and are specialized and cater to individuals. I think about telephones and how frustrating some of us get with just trying to get a doctor's appointment. But yet when someone picks up the phone, it's easier to talk to folks. So, I see some services, like whether it's mobile services, like, hair salons and nail trimming and that sort of thing is also important, as well as dentists being able to go out into the home. Anyway, that's kind of my take.
Thank you. Thanks very much for that. We have one more question that we have prepared for you, and then we'll see if there's any audience questions. This question is, what is your experience, if any, partnering with the community colleges, and to collect any specific suggestions you have about how the community colleges can better prepare students for jobs in the industry? And that could be students of any age in the community college system. So Mary, I'll ask you first. Any experience with the community colleges and any suggestions?
I have very little experience. I feel like I'd like to defer my part of this program to Jan Trefiro, because I think she's going to be able to have a lot more insight than I am. But the one thing we do sometimes successfully is we do pair with the LVN, the technical LVN programs. And then other than that, we have not met with a lot of success in community colleges. And go Jan.
Go Jan. The baton has been passed.
Okay, well, a couple things. First of all, one of the things that CALA has been doing for the last several years, and it was a little bit disrupted by COVID, but we are moving forward with, is we are partnering with another organization who has, through a grant they received several years back, prepared a course in offering a certificate in senior care for community college students. And the nice thing is it's really catered not only to your young, maybe entry age college student, community college students, but also folks may be looking for a second career. Over the course of the semester, they would have that opportunity to gain the knowledge and insights into what it takes to work in a senior care setting, and better position themselves then for those entry-level positions, gain some practical experience toward the tail end of the course, and gain opportunity toward employment. And then from there, also provide them that vision for where that can take them. So it's not to have them start and land only in an entry-level position, but give them that vision for, okay, now that I'm working in this entry-level position, I see that I'm really interested in working with residents living with dementia, or I really have a passion for integrating activities, perhaps behind the scenes more in the business office or as a concierge or whatever the case might be. So the goal is to give them that vision for advancement as well. This content for this course has been fully vetted by CALA's Workforce Development Committee, which is comprised of a group of senior living professionals with a variety of backgrounds and experience. Literally went through every module of the course and said, here's where this might be better suited for a senior care setting. This is a little less relevant, perhaps replace it with this and so forth. So they poured through all of the course content. It's being readied in an online format as we speak. It's going to be piloted in the LA region in the fall, but the goal is to have this in an open source what should I say, setting, so that after, that initial pilot is undertaken and insights are gained from that, we can then make that available to other community colleges who can basically plug and play, knowing that the profession, the professionals through our association have said, this is what we believe will most prepare people for entering the profession, for working with seniors. You asked about suggestions, and one of the things I hear from our members all the time, I'm going on my 15th year now with CALA, and obviously we have many different representatives from many organizations, Mary's being one, many, many others. One of the things I hear quite often is there's a need for, and I see this play out with our student scholarship recipients when they attend our conferences as well, because they have this this meet and greet event where they're face-to-face in a speed dating kind of environment where they have just 3 or 4 minutes with each of those prospective employers. And what I heard from our members time and again is it's really important when you have that limited time with the prospective employer to balance what you're demonstrating in terms of your soft skills, that caring gene that's so critical, so important, but also the recognition of the business model as well. And it's really the melding of those two things. And so if any suggestion were to be made, it would be to help encourage students when they have that time with prospective employers and when they're in that setting to recognize and demonstrate both. It's a given that if you've developed and gone through a gerontology program, hopefully you have that heart and that understanding for that soft side. What doesn't always come through quite as clearly is the recognition that there is a business side to that work as well. And so when those two things are melded and demonstrated, I think that really stands out. and provides, recognition that this person has that balance and has opportunity to use those skills in a variety of ways.
Thank you, Jan. Appreciate it. Jeannine, any thoughts, any experience partnering with the community colleges, and any thoughts on or suggestions on what community colleges can do to better prepare students for jobs in this area?
As of yet, I haven't had any experience except for, starting up the internships with, like say Sac State. I did have an intention sort of because I'm familiar with ARC's program way back when Dr. Glogly was still there. She sort of changed my life. But I definitely feel like students, because obviously if you come out and you're a caregiver, you aren't, that part of it, the pay scale is very minimal. And it is difficult to, get a job probably where you could, make ends meet, especially in California. So I feel like gerontology is such a broad, it's the psychosocial and the and just so many, like sociology. I got a lot out of my sociology courses, coupled with my gerontology courses and ethnicity, philosophy. I mean, there's so many different pieces of it, but it's kind of just a difficult, I remember being afraid. I was like, oh no, am I going to get a job? Because I'd be in the state capitol because I was lobbying with Leading Age California for my internship, and nobody knew what gerontology was. And these were well-educated people on the Capitol. And I remember just thinking, oh, we need to educate people. And so, but I don't know if that's a tough one for me, because I had a really great experience at Sac State. I feel like they were really, we learned geriatric care management. I mean, the last year we were always doing some project with either an assisted living community that we partnered with, or the Renaissance Club. And so I had a pretty well-rounded view. And then I was kind of one of the deviants that went off and wanted to do advocacy. So I came to Leading Age. It was sort of just a fluke, but I really feel like that too could be something where people with that passion to advocate could sort of those types of internships, because I feel like that's really important, that awareness of the needs and the need to advocate for the aging population and community-based services and person-centered care. I mean, the whole gamut is really important.
Thank you.
To kind of raise that awareness.
Thank you so much. Michelle, any experience connecting with the community colleges, or any other suggestions for community colleges in preparing students?
Yeah, we have partnered with American River in particular to accept volunteer opportunities or interns in many of their departments, not just gerontology. And I still vividly remember one of our interns, and she was amazing, was also a caregiver herself. I would say, with regards to my suggestion, it really is to equip any student with kind of a level of professionalism of what it's like to be an employee of an organization, that it's, simple things, being able to write well and answer phones and have a work ethic. I think that they're so focused academically that they may not have, when they get a job in the real world, they don't know how to act sometimes. And so we actually have to mentor them through that process, even sometimes through the interview process of what it's like, to bring your best self and to sell yourself in a humble way. I actually have a funny story that one of our family consultants, we don't allow tattoos to be visibly shown in our agency. And I recognize that that's, difficult for a lot of people, whether or not that policy changes or not. But she actually is new at our agency. And she said she had one of her professors early on in her program say, she came in with a brand new tattoo and said, you may want to really rethink your placement of tattoos if you're going to work with the older adult population. And, obviously there's a lot surrounding what I just shared, but, I think just preparing people for the career choice that they're choosing to make is important.
Thank you. Thanks for those insights. Diane, any experience working with the community colleges or any final suggestions for them?
Well, over 36 years of working with community college here in our area, and both colleges in our area, it has been an essential partnership and relationship over the years for so many reasons. And most of all because adult day services, our adult day healthcare program, it's like a community center. So our goal is to have actually, have a flow of the community through our program all the time. And as students come into our center and engage with, especially our older adult participants, but our younger participants too, the relationships, the life, the energy that it creates is what brings vitality to everything we do. We also have the RN program locally. We are a placement site, a field placement. So we have RN students continually coming through most of the time. We have students from other programs, and we have a lot of students who want to gain general experience and learn more about working with older adults. So we can, given our flexibility and the fact that we cover just about every aspect of things, we can place them throughout our program, including students who are interested in eventually becoming an occupational therapist, for instance, can work, and do an internship with our occupational therapist. These are kind of unusual opportunities in the depth that we're able to provide them. So we really love our relationship with our community college, and look forward to being able to get back to a whole lot more of that soon, hopefully.
Thank you. And thank you to this panel for all of your wonderful insights. I see that we have a question from Lorinda Reynolds, I think specifically to Jan. Lorinda, did you want to unmute yourself and ask the question?
Absolutely. Hi, Jan. Thank you for being here. So because of the nature of what the gerontological competencies are and what we are actually qualified to teach, I'm wondering about the curriculum in the pilot program that you're working with, and whether you're coordinating right now with faculty from behavioral social science or gerontology or nursing or health science in general.
Kind of all of the above, quite honestly, because this has been a project that's been taking place over the course of several years. And the original grant holder at the time the course was initially developed, and again, it's been updated since, worked with I think it was a total of 7 community colleges in the LA region. And so depending on where it made the most sense for each college to offer the course based on the programs available, sometimes it was through allied health, sometimes through gerontology, and so forth. So I think there is a cross-representation there. That initial course, as I mentioned, was then vetted further by the profession itself. And the goal is to partner. When the course is rolled out, the goal is to have students spend some time in the senior care setting toward the end of the course after, learning, the content portion so that they can then see how those skills can be rolled into or applied in a practical way. One of the other things I didn't mention earlier, though, is the offering of our scholarships to students. Our membership is comprised of they're very supportive of wanting to grow the profession and bring these future leaders in. And so through their generous support of the Cal Scholarship Fund, we're able to offer numerous scholarships to students to attend each of our events. And now that we're online, there's not even a geographic barrier to prevent that. And so again, that's another way that we partner, and we have messaging that's going out to close to 900 contacts throughout the state, community colleges, universities, vocational schools, organizations working with military veterans, job centers, and so forth. And we welcome folks to apply for those scholarships and just dip their toes in the water, learn a little bit more, see how they can apply their skills and go from there. And for those individuals who find that maybe working in the community setting isn't for them, going back to that tech question, the last thing to consider is there are so many companies, technology-based and otherwise, that offer services and support and products to individuals from all these wonderful organizations represented today, whether it's the medical supplies, the activity support, and so many different iterations. And those are also wonderful opportunities to find a place in working with seniors and applying their skills in the best way.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, I want to introduce Lorinda to you, and she is going to wrap us up with a presentation. And then we'll hear briefly from Julie Holt and Angela Cordell. Lorinda, so gerontology is Lorinda's second career, entering community college in 2009 as a non-traditional student. She completed her AA in special education and interdisciplinary Bachelor's of Science in Speech Language, Hearing Science, Psychology, and Cultural Linguistics, and a Gerontology Master's at the University of Northern Colorado, excuse me. Additionally, she completed a year of doctoral studies in cognition and memory research at Arizona State University, where she identified her primary interest as ageism within academia and the health and helping professions. She now serves as the Gerontology Department Chair and Career Education Program Coordinator at American River College. In May of 2016, she was awarded an innovation grant through the Academy for Gerontology in Higher Education, funded by the Retirement Research Foundation, to support the development of an online course, Ageism First Aid, which is now supported on the Gerontological Society of America website. That's a tongue twister. And I'll let Lorinda take it from here.
Okay, and it's going to take me just a second to manipulate my screen. And shoot, sorry.
Problem. Thank you everyone for hanging in there with us. A lot of great information today.
Almost there.
Okay. Oh, it looks like there's a hand raised by Andrea. Was it an accident or is there a question?
Can I'm having trouble sharing my screen. Do I have screen sharing?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I made you co-host.
So down at the bottom of your screen there, the green.
Yeah, I'm just not finding the, I mean, I see the option, it's just not.
Okay.
Well, if you have trouble.
There it is. I found it. Okay. It was just hidden behind too many windows. So before I get started, let's see, can you see me now? See the screen, the photo?
Yes.
Okay. So before I get started, take a look at this image. If you've been imagining that by guiding students toward gerontology, that they're choosing to care for people in nursing homes or memory care units, that image is a product of ageism. There are fewer younger faces in this picture, but a few younger young faces, but gerontologists provide support services and programs in senior centers for all people over 60 years of age. If you see yourself or your family in this image, then see that this gerontologist will be supporting you as you age. I apologize for the absence of people using mobility devices because I didn't mean to exclude them. They're all throughout our population. I just couldn't find any photographs that included them. And that is a product of ableism, not ageism. So also, just to help you understand who we serve, this is where older people in the US lived in 2014. And so when you look at this graph, you'll see that people over 65, 84% lived in their homes and were not receiving any support services. 13% were living in their homes with support services. And this little tiny slice, 28% were living in nursing homes or residential settings receiving support. And most of those were over 85 years of age. So gerontologists serve this entire population in all slices in non-clinical positions. And geriatrics really takes the lead in servicing this percentage, this slice of the pie, right? And because so many people are influenced by ageism throughout their life, there's a tendency to think that the slice that's this little piece over here is much larger than it really is. And so just wanted to give you a chance to kind of think about that. So I'm very excited about the opportunity to make this presentation today. This is my area of expertise, research and publication. Our learning objectives are to describe ageism in terms of its onset, the phenomena, its consequences, and its pervasive sources, to identify components of ageism development, to investigate the impact of ageism on career choices, because everything we've talked about today so far has an underlying issue, and that's ageism, and to assess ageism interventions that promote careers in the field of aging and increase age friendliness on campuses. So ageism is a byproduct of modernization, industrialization, and the medicalization of aging, which triggered its onset in 1880. Ageism was recognized and named 90 years later when it was described as discrimination and prejudice. This graph is from a computational linguistic analysis of over 400 million words in published works within the Oxford libraries. The study identified a shift from positive aging stereotypes to negative here. Oops, I covered up my spell. Right here in 1880, when the medical professions, mental and health, took ageism as a part of their scope of practice, or aging as a part of their scope of practice. And of course, we talk about things from a more negative perspective whenever we write about research. We don't write about the good stuff, we write about the problems we're trying to solve. So after 50 years of research, we understand that ageism is a self-perpetuating biopsychosocial phenomena with many consequences and sources. My working definition was published in the Journal of Aging and Social Policy in May 2020. It's a little different here because I took the constructs out of it. But the first component of the definition is the ageism phenomena. It refers to messages that, whether intended or not, cultivate negative attitudes towards older people and aging, or misunderstandings and fears about aging, and messages that marginalize older people by conveying that being younger is better than being older, or that the needs of younger people are more important to society than the needs of older people. The consequences of ageism vary on a broad spectrum. How frequently a person is the target of ageism and how vulnerable a person is physically and mentally determine if an ageism message is just rude or potentially stigmatizing or harmful physically or mentally. Abuse, neglect, exploitation, social marginalization, and the denial of medical care based on age are all extreme forms of ageism. The sources of ageism messages may be verbal or nonverbal, written or recorded, actions or inactions, and they may be from any source. agencies, businesses, environmental design, written policies, media, textbooks, other people, or they may come from within our own minds against our current or future self as thoughts. Content on these next two slides are key points of development from Ageism First Aid. You'll hear more about that course shortly. In childhood, exaggerated images of older people in cartoons and picture books and the words and actions of family and friends make the earliest subtle negative impressions about aging. Well-meaning excursions to nursing homes confirm the negative images. Realistic impressions of active older people in good health are absent in learning materials and media. And negative impressions eventually outweigh the positive, and negative implicit bias is established in childhood. In our teenage years and as young adults, we continue to receive negative messages about aging, but the sources of the messages change. Children's cartoons are replaced with adult cartoons, for example, The Simpsons. Advertisements convey the value of looking young and cultivate a fear of matching the negative aging stereotype. When words about aging and older people evoke negative images of aging, the aging stereotype has been established in our minds. And eventually our negative impressions of others cultivate implicit fears of aging, and we start sending negative messages to our future self. Ageism clearly influences our career choices. Without intervention, by the time high school students begin to consider career options, negative implicit bias against aging and the negative aging stereotype are fully developed. As a result, traditional students rarely investigate or enroll in gerontology programs straight out of high school. Most people in positions to guide career choices lack knowledge about careers in the field of aging, are not well informed about careers in gerontology, and they have negative implicit bias against aging and fully developed negative aging stereotypes. So ageism drives the workforce gap in the field of aging, and population aging is widening the gap. To bridge the gap with well-qualified candidates will require outreach programs in high schools that include ageism interventions and courses in adult development. It will require outreach to faculty and counselors in high schools that include ageism interventions and training about the field of aging. The creation of new courses, degrees, and certificate programs that will be seamless, and the recruitment of qualified faculty to teach these courses. So ageism interventions supported by the Gerontological Society include, there are three basic ones. So there's Ageism First Aid, which I'm going to tell you about and give you a quick tour on in just a minute. And there's Age Friendly University, which is an international or global movement that provides colleges and universities with support as they work to make campuses friendly to students, employees, and their local community of all ages, make them comfortable on their campus and in classrooms. And then the Reframing Aging Initiative that will change, which is designed to change social perceptions about aging and policies long term. So I'm going to finish up by giving you a quick tour of Ageism First Aid. The intervention is explicitly designed to meet our outreach needs, and it also is designed to target the population that we really want to bring into gerontology programs that we know are already working in the field, but they don't have any upward mobility. So these next slides were formatted for a GSA presentation, so they're a little different. So I'm going to shift things a little bit. So if you're wondering about the course name, it was chosen because in middle age, the ageism messages we are exposed to, it makes little scratches on our minds that build up over time and cause aging stigma. So Ageism First Aid is an intervention that will help take the sting out of those little scratches. So we're applying first aid through this course. AFA is written in clear, concise language so that it is accessible to high school students, to English second language learners. There are a number of modules. There are 3 modules and there are 5 topics in each one. It takes the learners less than 2 hours to complete. And it offers a certificate of completion that's valid for 3 years, because just like first aid, hands-on, we can't just think that we're going to have our issues addressed and solved after one exposure to an intervention. So they need to come back and take it a couple of times. And the fee for the course is $15 to $30, depending upon the affiliation of the individual. So for example, my students pay a fee of $15. And if you're not affiliated, then the highest fee is $30. So Ageism First Aid replaces common misinformation and myths about older people and the aging process with facts, increases ageism awareness, and reduces ageism and the experiences of aging stigma in the population that we serve, which is critical. It advances gerontology as a discipline by teaching about the field of aging, and it helps to kind of parcel out this confusion between what gerontology is, what geriatrics is, and what all of the other professions that have a role in the field of aging are, so that people have a full choice of what they want to do within the field. And it provides a source of discretionary funding for gerontology programs and programs that are working with it, because we get a little tiny piece of that little fee. And over time, it will allow us to either engage in projects or fund scholarships. So Module 1 addresses programs for older people, because a lot of our ideas that are incorrect about aging and older people come from politicalization. So we talk about these programs, explain what's an entitlement program versus a benefit program. We introduce the field of aging and all of the types of employment. We introduce the aging process to dispel the myths. We talk about how the aging process changes us. We make it a very personalized approach, and it directly addresses the most severe myths about aging that are really causing a problem in people's minds. And on this next slide, this is an actual example from Ageism First Aid from the online course. And this particular one addresses hearing changes. So I hope that you get a chance to read that when you get the handout, because it's a very important slide for you to understand. I'm going to click through these here because it just talks about the content itself and what's in there. There is a pre and post learning assessment. It's already been piloted, and we're going on the next iteration of improvement. Module 2 addresses ageism specifically. Ageism in America, it teaches about where it comes from, how we learn and develop it, how language and words contribute to ageism. And just a caveat here, we know from research that the word old and the word elderly both evoke negative images of aging in people's minds. So we want to find a way to change that use, and just drop the ly on elderly and add an ER to old, and you will stop causing stigma. It develops ageism awareness and introduces that concept so people will have for their own health and well-being going forward, because there's a plethora of research that's showing how harmful and how expensive ageism is. So it inoculates the people that take this course, or students, against ageism themselves. And then it makes that connection between ageism, elder abuse, and that sort of thing. So that's Module 2. But probably the most important course, important part of the course for people who are already recruiting people in the field of aging is this section, which is Module 3, and it's the basic communication training that we've been talking about as the panel was speaking. So this is superficial, but this is another reason why the course needs to be taken every couple of years, just to re-tickle those skills. So it improves skills by explaining the basic elements of communication. We teach about respectful, person-centered approaches. We also, in the course, have an effective person, setting, and situation approach, because how you talk to a person is really influenced by where you're talking to them, and vice versa. So this is a really important piece of the training. It introduces appropriate ageism-free language. And then we even include a section on basic charting and reporting guidelines, because all of those things actually are filled with ageism, and we want to help people improve their skills. So thank you for your attention today. Please feel free to email me or with questions about Ageism First Aid or gerontology programs or anything like that. And with that, I will stop sharing my screen.
Thank you, Lorinda. And several people have asked about access to your presentation. We let them know that we're going to be building a comprehensive PowerPoint. So if you can make sure that Jesse has that, we'll send out the resources to everyone for all of the presentations today. And I'm going to give it over to Julie, who's going to wrap us up.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Lorinda, for a great presentation. An excellent resource for all pathway programs and also for your help in assembling our amazing panels today. We thank all of you for your time, your expertise, your rounding out our understanding and everything you shared today. And back to our word wall, I was really excited about that at the beginning as our icebreaker. You know, we're looking at community and vitality. And I love the word that love came up and holistic, because that is really what we need to teach at all levels and all programs. And we're very excited. We're hoping our community colleges can connect to your industry partners for really looking at for your pipeline preparation and for us to bring this back to our high school students and really strengthen that pathway as well. Angela and I thank you all for your attendance today. And thank you, Valley Vision, to Renee and Jesse. Amazing resources today. And again, our panelists. Have a good afternoon. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.